The Galactic War Council hovered in dim silence, their elongated forms stiff with disdain, their darkened chamber, illuminated by shifting holograms of battle data, reflected the cold precision of the Xelari Dominion. A new projection flickered. To life, an intercepted transmission from the front lines. The alien lords leaned forward as distorted static gave way to visuals. A single battered human warship drifted amidst the wreckage of its fleet. It was a crude vessel, ancient in design, scarred by years of war. Compared to the sleek, biomechanical constructs of the Zelari armada, it was a relic, a rusting coffin waiting to be shattered. The Terran ship refuses surrender, a Zelari admiral sneered, mandibles clicking in amusement. Primitive minds. They persist beyond logic. Transmit their final moments, another voice murmured. Let us witness the last breath of their defiance. The hologram zoomed in, revealing the warship's crumbling hull, its weapons disabled, its energy readings flickering on the verge of collapse. The Zelari fleet encircled it, their fractal dreadnoughts preparing a synchronized plasma barrage that would erase the ship from existence. Then, something changed. The human vessel's remaining thrusters ignited, weak, faltering, a death rattle. But instead of fleeing, the ship surged forward, straight into the heart of the Zelari formation. Madness, one of the counselors hissed. The Zelari dreadnoughts adjusted, ready to obliterate the Terran wreck. But in that instant, the human ship did something no one expected. It split apart, not in an explosion, not in destruction. The outer hull peeled away, revealing a smaller, more agile core ship within. A deception, a trap. The warship had never been crippled. It had been playing dead. Before the Zelari could react, the human core ship detonated electromagnetic pulses in every direction, short-circuiting the enemy's targeting systems. What had seemed like a doomed vessel was now a phantom, maneuvering through the chaos, launching missile volleys at point-blank range. The battle had changed. The hunted had become the hunter, and for the first time, the Galactic War Council watched in growing horror. This was not desperation. This was not madness. This was human strategy. The Galactic War Council chamber, once filled with smug amusement, was now drenched in a heavy silence. Holographic projections flickered as the battle unfolded, an event none of them had anticipated. High Chancellor Vazix, a towering figure of bioluminescent veins and crystalline armor, leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes narrowing at the chaotic dance of destruction. The Terran warship, no, the Terran deception, had sent the Zelari fleet into disarray. How? Vazix rasped, his voice clicking through the chamber like dry leaves against metal. How did they anticipate our strike? A lesser war tactician, a Zelari of lower caste, hesitated before speaking. They lured us into it. Their ship was designed to fail in our eyes. The outer hull was meant to be destroyed, meant to shed its armor and create an opening. A silence followed. Then another voice spoke, one dripping with contempt. This is nonsense. Humans are vermin. Their ships are outdated. They do not have the mental faculty for such precision. Vazix did not reply immediately. Instead, he watched. The warship was no longer just fighting. It was stalking its enemies. It twisted and weaved through the crippled dreadnoughts, using their own confusion against them. The Zelari fleet, despite its technological superiority, was floundering. Their ships were too rigid, their formation too predictable. The humans had found the cracks in their perfect armor, and leading the charge was a name that made Vazix's veins dim in recognition. Commander Elias Stroud. Commander Elias Stroud tightened, his grip on the command panel, his knuckles white against the flickering red light of emergency systems. The Havoc was bleeding, half its systems fried, its hull barely holding, but it was still alive, and that was enough. "Confirm enemy response," Stroud ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos. A navigator, an ensign barely in her 20s, turned with wide eyes. "They're scrambling! Their formation is collapsing. They didn't expect us to think," Stroud finished for her. He allowed himself the smallest of smirks. "They believe we are creatures of instinct, that we react, not plan, that we fight blindly, not strategically." Stroud's second-in-command, Lieutenant Rourke, gave a sharp nod. "We should press the attack while they're confused. The Havoc's thrusters can still give us another run before we burn out." "Not yet," Stroud said. His gaze flickered toward the central screen, where the flagship of the Zelari fleet loomed in the distance. The APEX Mantle. That was the heart, the mind of the enemy fleet. The Zelari, for all their arrogance, followed strict battle hierarchies. Remove the APEX Mantle, and the rest would hesitate. The Havoc couldn't outgun them, but it could outthink them. Stroud turned toward his crew, a fire in his eyes. "We're going to make them fear us." The crew exchanged glances, nodding. They had no illusions about the odds. They were outnumbered, outgunned. But that had never stopped humanity before, because humanity didn't just survive. They adapted, and they made damn sure their enemies never forgot them. Vasix watched as the humans shifted the battlefield, their single warship turning the tide against a force meant to annihilate them. For the first time, a sliver of doubt crept into his mind. Perhaps the humans were not inferior. Perhaps they were something far worse, unpredictable, dangerous, and above all, relentless. The Havoc burned through the void like a wounded beast, its thrusters sputtering, hull plating shedding in jagged fragments. But its movements were calculated. Every drift, every feigned loss of control was a part of something greater. Commander. Elias Stroud watched the Zelari fleet's panicked responses with the cold focus of a predator. Their maneuvers were rigid, predictable. He had spent years studying their war doctrine, how they moved, how they responded to chaos, and now they were drowning in it. The APEX Mantle, the Zelari flagship, loomed ahead, larger than a Terran. Space station, covered in pulsating biomechanical plating. It was the nerve center of the entire fleet. Take it out, and the chain of command would collapse. But Stroud knew he couldn't fight it conventionally. He needed to make them fear him first. Inside the APEX Mantle, Admiral Zyrek watched the battle shift into a nightmare. The Havoc should have been dead. It had no shields, its weapons were failing, and yet it moved like it knew them. Every time a Zelari ship locked onto it, the humans anticipated the attack. They veered into blind spots, used debris as cover, forced their enemies into crossfire. "They are maneuvering without scanners," a Zelari tactician stammered. "Their systems are crippled. How are they avoiding us?" Zyrek clenched, his mandibles. He knew how. Humans had an insane ability they learned. Unlike the cold efficiency of the Zelari, their minds adapted in ways no war machine could predict. But what chilled him to the core was what he saw next. The Havoc wasn't just dodging fire. It was toying with them. The ship twisted through the battlefield, luring Zelari destroyers into friendly fire. Their plasma beams missed by mere meters, redirected by last-minute thruster burns from the human warship. They weren't just fighting, they were making a spectacle of their destruction, and the Zelari, for the first time, felt something new slither into their cold, logical minds. Doubt. "Bring us into formation," Zyrek commanded, gripping the organic controls of the APEX Mantle. "Prepare to finish them. I will not let a single human leave this battlefield alive." His fleet shifted, reforming into a crushing formation, tightening the noose, and then Stroud spoke. His voice cracked through intercepted transmissions, patched into the Zelari command channels. "You call us primitive. You think we fight blindly, without logic. But tell me this, who's panicking now?" A silence settled over the fleet. Then Stroud delivered his final blow. "You wanted to show the galaxy humanity's last breath? Fine, watch closely." The Havoc stopped running. It turned and charged, straight for the APEX Mantle. "Fire everything," Xerec snarled. The APEX Mantle unleashed a planet-cracking barrage, plasma lances, void torpedoes, singularity cannons. A storm of destruction engulfed the Havoc, turning it into a blinding inferno. The Zelari fleet watched the human warship disappear into the fire. For a moment, the battlefield was quiet. Victory. Then, the impossible happened. A shape emerged. Smaller, faster, a second ship. A drop-pod-cloaked stealth vessel had been ejected from the Havoc at the last moment, riding the explosion's wake like a spectre. It breached the APEX Mantle's hull before anyone could react. Alarms shrieked inside the Zelari flagship. The Havoc's true payload had just landed inside their command center, and Elias Stroud was aboard it. Xerec barely had time to react before the breach alarms turned to gunfire. Humans inside his ship. His elite guard barely lasted 10 minutes. Stroud and his boarding team carved through them like a wildfire, small in number, but unstoppable. Xerec tried to flee, but when the blast doors opened, he found himself face to face with Stroud. The human commander stood there, rifle aimed steady. His face, smeared with soot and blood, was calm. "Go ahead," Stroud said, tilting his head. "Call for reinforcements. Tell them you've been overrun by a species that was supposed to be beneath you." Xerec hissed in fury. "You think this will change anything?" Stroud's smile was not human. "Oh, I know it will," he whispered. With a single shot, he executed the Admiral. The APEX Mantle's command structure collapsed within moments. Without Xerec, the fleet lost cohesion. The rigid, disciplined Zelari forces, who had never fought without strict hierarchy, panicked. Some tried to flee. Others turned their weapons on each other, paranoid that humans had already infiltrated their ships. It was no longer a battle, it was a slaughter, and the galaxy had just learned a brutal lesson. You do not corner humanity, because when they have nothing left to lose, they don't just fight, they make sure you remember them. The bridge of the APEX Mantle was in chaos. The Zelari command structure, known for its cold, unwavering precision, was in shambles. Officers shouted conflicting orders, their movements erratic. The rigid, machine-like efficiency of their fleet had been their greatest strength, until now. Until humanity exploited it. Commander Elias Stroud stood over the lifeless body of Admiral Xerec, his rifle cooling in his grip. The stench of scorched alien flesh lingered in the air. Around him, his strike team secured the final control nodes of the APEX Mantle, systematically dismantling the war machine from the inside. On Stroud's command, they turned the Zelari flagship's weapons against their own fleet. The APEX Mantle opened fire. The Zelari fleet, once an indomitable force, broke apart in terror. They had never fought an enemy like this, an enemy who turned their own tactics against them, who didn't crumble under superior firepower, who didn't submit to logic or probability. Humanity was supposed to be the prey, but now the Zelari were running. Stroud stepped forward, accessing the flagship's main communications relay. His voice boomed across all Zelari frequencies. "This is Commander Elias Stroud of the Terran. Warship Havoc. To the Xelari Dominion. You called us primitive. You laughed at our ships, our tactics, our resilience. Now look at you." The message played over the battle frequencies as Zelari warships turned, breaking formation, fleeing in pure, unrestrained panic. Stroud continued, his voice steady, cold. "You wanted to make humanity's last warship an example? Congratulations, you did. Now the galaxy knows exactly why you should fear us." He cut the transmission. Then he gave the final order, detonate the APEX Mantle. The Zelari flagship exploded in a brilliant shockwave, consuming what remained of the battlefield in a sphere of fire and plasma. The Zelari fleet, already broken, fled in every direction. The Havoc, barely holding together, escaped just beyond the blast radius. Stroud watched as the remnants of the Zelari war fleet scattered into the void. The mighty Dominion, which had ruled with absolute certainty, had been brought to its knees not by superior numbers nor by advanced weaponry, But by one human warship, by one act of defiance, the battle was over. But the war had just begun. The APEX Mantle was gone. What remained of the Zelari fleet had scattered, fleeing into the cold depths of space, not in retreat, but in fear. The Xelari Dominion, once the architects of conquest, had been humbled by a single warship, by a species they had mocked. Humanity had not just survived, they had changed the course of history. Inside the battered command bridge of the Havoc, alarms flickered weakly. The ship was barely functional. The hull was cracked, its core was failing, and its crew was exhausted. But they were alive. Lieutenant Rourke exhaled sharply, gripping the console in front of him. "We just turned one of the deadliest fleets in the galaxy into a pack of runaways." Stroud leaned back in his seat, wiping soot from his face. His body ached from the battle, but a quiet satisfaction burned in his chest. "Not just runaways," he muttered. "They won't just run, they'll talk." Rourke turned, his expression shifting. "You think they'll spread the word?" Stroud allowed himself a small, knowing smirk. "Oh, they'll do more than that. The Zelari rule through fear, and fear is a contagion. If they let the rest of the galaxy know what happened here, what a single human warship did to them, then suddenly they aren't the apex predators anymore." His gaze drifted toward the view screen, where the wreckage of battle drifted in the void. "They're going to fear us now." Far away, in the shadowed depths of the Galactic War Council, the Zelari leadership gathered once more. The chamber, once filled with overconfidence, was now drenched in a cold, heavy silence. The footage of the battle replayed, of a human warship, outmaneuvering an empire, of a human standing over the body of their admiral, of the APEX Mantle's destruction. The silence lingered. Then, at last, High Chancellor Vazix spoke. "The humans are not to be underestimated." Another voice, still laced with disbelief, hissed in response. "They were outnumbered 10-1, outgunned, and yet—" "They adapted," Vazix murmured, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. "They turned our own weapons against us. They defied every projection. We do not face mere creatures of war." He exhaled, his bioluminescent veins pulsing dimly. "We face a species that refuses to die." A long pause. Then the final verdict came. "From this day forward, the Terrans are to be marked as a Level 1 existential threat. Across the galaxy," the whispers began. They called it the Battle of the Havoc. The day a single human warship outwitted an empire. The day the Zelari ran. The day humanity proved that even against the impossible, they would never surrender. And the final warning left in the wreckage of the battlefield, carved into the hull of a fallen Zelari warship, was transmitted across the stars, a message no species could ignore. "You should have finished us when you had the chance."